Rebecca, what is up?
So my husband and I are really at a crossroads with my in-laws
Okay.
and family. My niece, who's a very young minor, recently gave birth to a baby with her boyfriend, who's also a minor.
How young minor?
15.
Whew. Okay.
Yes. It's a very complicated and tough situation. Right now, the mother, my niece, is trying to decide what to do with the child.
What is... Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's probably another call.
Crossroads. Yeah, the crossroads is that there are a couple options on the table, and a few of them are very tough, maybe possibly even unsafe options for the baby. And my husband and I don't know how involved to get to fight for, the best situation for the child.
So if there is less than optimal situations or things that you wouldn't do, that's one thing. If there's ever, in any circumstance, in any neighborhood, in any home, in any family system, a situation where a kid is not safe, then my expectation is that every adult in the neighborhood, in the family, walking down the street, every stranger goes into that situation kicking and screaming on behalf of that child. That's my 2 cents on that. So give me an example of what you feel is uncomfortable or a little bit weird. You're being kind of vague. So walk me through a couple of situations here.
Okay. So the first option is that my sister-in-law has offered to adopt the baby. She still lives at home with her parents and a couple other of her siblings that are in their mid to late 30s. One of them struggles with substance abuse and is really, really deep in that. It's been many, many years and is not someone that I would consider safe around children or babies especially.
Okay.
He's known to be violent with animals, never been abusive towards a kid that we know of, but has also never lived with one.
Sure. So that's situation number one. Okay, so they're going to be, and I want to parse that out real quick. She might get adopted by her sister, right? Sister-in-law, or her boyfriend's sister, right?
No, so it's my niece's aunt, my sister-in-law.
Okay, your sister-in-law. Okay, so she might get adopted there into a house where there's a bunch of adults living there, which wouldn't be how you would draw it up, but isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's lots of families that have lots of interesting intergenerational dynamics and people coming and going, and that may not be how I draw it up, but I'm not always have a problem with that. Particularly, there's lots of different ways that culturally that families live together, and that's beautiful, and it's okay for how they choose to do it. It's not how I do it, but it's how they do it. But then you added another thing, which is there's somebody there that's an addict, that's got violence history towards animals, is not a safe guy, and you were worried about a baby being put in that environment. Okay, so that's number one. What's the second one?
Yep. The second one is that at this young age, they're encouraging her to go out on her own and raise the child, which is scary for us because, her and her boyfriend, they are both very young, and they both come from broken homes and haven't had a great example of what it should look like to raise a child.
That's a really tough road to hoe for a 15-year-old girl by herself out on her own. Are y'all in a position to take her in? What's your solution to that challenge?
Well, so we live very far away. We have offered to adopt the baby. We would not at this time be interested in taking them in as a unit, all three of them, the boyfriend, the mother, and the baby. But that is, as far as we've sort of been able to come up with, there doesn't really seem to be. I mean, it's such a emotionally intense situation.
What did people say
Very.
when you offered to you and your husband offered to adopt the baby? What was the response?
Well, so it was communicated to my in-laws, not to the mother directly, because it's only been a couple days since birth. She's still recovering from
Sure.
Slightly traumatic birth, but response good from one, maybe not so much from the other, because they don't want the baby to be far away.
Sure. So I fully support you adopting the baby if that's what y'all want to do. I fully support you guys having her and the baby move in, because then at that point you're basically adopting a teenager and that little baby. So you're becoming a grandma, right, instead of a adoptive mother. I fully support you not having all three of them move in. I don't want two teenagers who are not married living in my house raising a kid, because then you got children raising a child, and it's going to get messy, 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 messy. And family members of his side are going to come out of the woodwork, right? And when they start to find out about this baby, and it's just going to be a mess. As far as of that baby possibly going to live in a situation where there's an addict and there's safety concerns, there's violence in that home, there's adults coming and going, particularly drug trafficking coming and going, dude, I'm going to go bang and yell and be loud with one caveat. If you and your husband have had a hard conversation about, do we want to expand our family, and this is going to be that baby, then you have emotionally invested in that baby. And the temptation is to start looking at every other situation as less than what you would do and less than what you would give. And there comes a moment when you start imposing your values and your judgments on everything else because, quote unquote, that's my baby now. And anything less than that baby coming to your house is a loss for you guys, right? And so if y'all have gone through that hard conversation, less about we're going to rescue that baby and more we're going to expand our family. And those are two totally separate conversations. Because one, you rescue the baby, then you figure out what to do later. Like, I'm getting that baby out of a burning building right now, and then we're going to figure it out. The other is, no, I'm committing to the next, for the rest of my life. I'm the baby's mother. I'm going to adopt her and raise her as my own. And in conjunction with her 15-year-old mother, you are making a decision to have a complex, enriched, beautiful, challenging life, which is honorable and noble and extraordinary. But you have to temper that with other situations that might have to happen to that baby, right? And so there's a difference between having an uncle that smokes weed and that's against the law and dumb, and I don't like that around my kid. And then there's a difference between someone's violent and they are an addict and they are bringing hard drugs into this house and they are. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So it's just tempering your heart and your plan for moving forward. And so I am 1,000% on board. If the baby's going to go to an unsafe situation, go for it. If the baby is, if y'all want to adopt this child, y'all have to go and be very, very vocal and be very direct and probably get in a car and tell people that you're coming and you want to have a hard conversation about this baby and meet with the 15-year-old and the 15-year-old's mother and the 15-year-old's father, if he's still in the picture, and because this is still a minor, right? And at the end of the day, sometimes you got to let the beginning part of this play out, knowing that we're going to pick this baby up in foster care because they're going to try a scenario 1 or scenario 2 and it's not going to work, and the baby's going to be welcome to come live with us. And it's a hard, messy family situation, but don't hesitate ever. If you think that that baby is not safe, is not going to be okay, that you don't reach out to the authorities right away. Get super involved. Get other people who know what they're doing super involved right away. But it's noble that you want to be a part of this baby's life. A 15-year-old is still a child. A 15-year-old is still a child. And they need to be honored like a child, even though they're now thrust into adulthood. So have a hard conversation with your husband and go make your move. I appreciate you, Rebecca. That's hard. It's really hard, and I appreciate you guys wanting to be involved in it. Make sure you temper your desire for this baby, the desire to rescue this kid and to raise this kid with it. He may or she may end up in other situations. They're going to look different, but may not be terrible. But if they are terrible, call the Calvary.